Welcome into an all-new Eagles Squad podcast. That's Harry Mays and Jason Martinez. I'm Mark Farzetta. We're going to be breaking it all down as far as it goes with the Eagles 2025 schedule on this edition of Eagles Squad podcast.
Fly, Eagles, fly. It's the Eagles Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Philadelphia Eagles every week, covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the city of brotherly love. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Eagles Squad show starting now.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We got so much to get into when it comes to your Philadelphia Eagles. First and foremost, the 2025 schedule is out. The roadmap, fellas. I've heard so many takes on this. I'll give you my personal take. I know we'll get into your takes on this. We got that to get into. Harry, I also know that you saw that the Eagles have lost yet another member of their scouting department there in the front office. People just trying to glom and gleam off of Howie Roseman and the magic that he creates in the NovaCare complex. So we'll get into all that and more today. But, fellas, we're going to start with that schedule. I have it here in case we need to reference it. I can put it up whenever you guys want it. But here you go. And tell me where you guys are at. But I honestly feel, and I heard Rich Eisen get into this. I'll get into some of the specifics there. But I've never looked at an Eagles schedule and just went top to bottom going, Eagles are better, Eagles are better, Eagles are better, Eagles are better, just all the way on down the list. But the way it is constructed, with especially no back-to-back home games at any point, which, by the way, the only teams in the top four in terms of strength of schedule, the Eagles are the only team that don't even have back-to-back home games throughout the season. I've never looked at the schedule and went, oh, wow, that's difficult, that's difficult, that's difficult. As it's constructed, I've never looked at the schedule as if it was the biggest threat to the Eagles' potential repeating of the same success of last year with a Super Bowl championship as I have looked at the 2025 schedule. Harry, what were your takeaways from looking at it for the first time?
Yeah, I was on that no back-to-back home games too, but I did notice they have two sets of back-to-back road games, and they also face a Minnesota team in Minnesota that is coming off of their bye the week before. So I went through all the bye weeks for every stinking team on the schedule, and the only time it lines up where the Eagles are facing a team on the off of their bye is a road game against Minnesota, and it also happens to be the second straight road game because they're playing the Giants on Thursday Night Football the week before. Now, they do get a little extended break from Thursday to Sunday, which is nice, but it is off of a bye week, which, we always know, like these teams, they get a little extra time to prepare for a specific opponent. Maybe they get a little well on injuries, whatever is going on with them. So that's an issue. I do like the idea that the Eagles bye week, though, falls in the middle of the season this year.
Week 9.
Yeah.
It's a little bit better. And, don't they always face Tampa Bay on the road and in late September? It just seems like it's a thing.
Week 4. Week 4, they're in Tampa. Week 3, they're in Tampa. Always.
And it's going to be hot.
Hurricane
hot.
season.
Yep. Maybe a hurricane, right.
Yep. Crazy.
Yeah. But I got a lot more, but that's just to start it off because you're right. Sure. No back-to-back home games is a little odd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Doesn't it seem weird that you play – you have an odd number of games. How do you play 2 back-to-back road games but don't have back-to-back home games at all? How does that math work out? Like, that seems weird to me. But
well, I don't know. But after the equal sign, it just means they hate the Eagles. The league hates the Eagles, Jason. Yeah. That's what I take away from it.
The league loves the Eagles because the Eagles bring ratings, and somebody's got to wear the black hat, and we in Philadelphia have no problem putting it on.
Right.
I love the schedule, and like Harry said, I love where the bye week is. We said on earlier podcast earlier this week, I like to be on week 10, kind of right in the middle of the season, so you can take maximum advantage to resting players, and they even get an extra day with their bye week because when they come back, they don't play till Monday night.
Right, at Green Bay.
Yeah. So, and you got your bye week going into a road game, which I think is good as well. And then you go into KC, you're extra rested because you started the season on the 4th, and you don't play until that Sunday night the week after. So you got the 10 days. And
that's a 4:25 game, actually. That's in
KC.
Second window against KC. Yeah.
Yep. And then look at your road games too. You're only on the road for 1 week. It's not like most of the time you're not road weary. You're coming out of your second road game in a row against Minnesota, but you played in New York. It's a bus ride on the way there. And so I think the schedule is pretty good. And even when your second road game, when you go to Buffalo, you're coming off Washington, so you're not going to be road weary from the mileage on the back-to-back road games. So I think it's a really advantageous schedule. Although I will say, you better be ready to go out of the gate because the season starts for real week 1. You can't ease your way into this one.
Now, I was thinking about it. If you guys remember the Rex Ryan New York Jets Hard Knocks back in the day when the Jets were going to AFC Championship games and all that. Remember that?
That's the butt fumble era.
The butt fumble era.
Sanchez. Yeah.
No pun intended. The tail end of it. If I know what I mean. But,
nicely done.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. It was right there. When it came to that Hard Knock, one of my favorite Hard Knocks ever, because Rex Ryan was obviously such a polarizing character, but it was after they had made it to the AFC Championship game, so it was going into the next year where they went to their second consecutive. And I remember Rex Ryan giving the speech to the locker room before their first preseason game, and he was talking about how, hey, last year we were able to sneak up on people. Everyone said the Jets snuck up on people. Maybe after the way last year ended, the Eagles were able to sneak up on a couple people last year. I doubt it, because I think everyone understood the power of Saquon Barkley behind that offensive line and all that. But everyone knows now you are the champions. You are the defending champions. And now you're going to be facing right out of the gate a team that is your most hated rival in the division. Maybe not your biggest rival, considering I think the Commanders are the biggest rival right now in terms of an actual threat.
Yeah.
But you got the Cowboys right out of the gate, and you got the Chiefs, and then you got the team in the LA Rams that played you better than anybody in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So that is added tension immediately. You're not able to ease into this. You're not able to sneak up on anybody. This is right out of the gate. You are being tested. And then it is really, another word I could use for this schedule is really unrelenting. I mean, you talk about people, okay, what's the focus when you talk about you don't have back-to-back games? Well, that means you're always on the go. That means there is never a situation like the Giants might have or the Commanders might have where you have 2 games in a row, or maybe even like the Commanders 3 games in a row at the end of the season, where you could just kind of nestle in. Like the end of last year, the Eagles didn't get on a plane for the last month and a half of the season, and that obviously benefited them down the stretch. So this is the exact opposite of that. The schedule is unrelenting. Yeah, I do think the harder games are at the beginning of the schedule, but still unrelenting as the season goes on.
Well, the whole situation with the Commanders we got to get to, too, because that's a whole other thing with regard to when the Eagles play them. But, yeah, the 6th toughest schedule, according to Sports Betting Dime, belongs to the Eagles. 10 playoff teams from the previous year are on this schedule. And then you start looking at, all the newness going on with the New York Giants. I don't know what they're going to be. They play them twice in a 3-week span, which is weird. I don't like that. Like you're done with the Giants before your bye week. For God's sake. So half of your division games are over in the middle of the season, and then you got to wait all the way until week 16 and 18 to face Washington. Who knows what the situation will be come week 18. I hate having a division game in week 18 because a lot of times for one or both teams it could be meaningless in certain ways, and then you start resting guys, and you're wasting a division opponent on a game where everybody's just trying to get through it without an injury. And I don't like that. I mean, stick the Raiders in week 18 for God's sakes. I don't know.
Well, you know why they do that. They do that because it could come down to a win-win situation, and that's why it's always also TBD.
Yeah,
because
TBD.
They want to put that game in prime time.
Love the TBD. But the Eagles have 2 TBDs, by the way, and they're both the Washington Commander games.
Yeah, which is
we'll let you know. We'll let you know.
Right. Yeah.
You would think that I want to say this in this day and age.
Oh, jeez.
Right, where computers and AI and all this, they can figure out anything. That you'd be able to punch into your little algorithm that makes the schedule.
Yeah.
A division team in the first half of the season and a division team in the second half of the season, not twice in 3 weeks. And I think you run a huge risk, like Harry said, of the game meaning absolutely nothing. So you wasted, the QB matchup. You wasted the fan matchup of geography, hoping that this game in week 18 is going to mean something.
Right, and that's the game right now, guys.
Yeah.
This went to the NFC Championship game last year. They faced each other 3 times. They got an up-and-coming quarterback. They made all these additions to the offensive line. They got Deebo Samuel. There's a lot of newness going on. And this is the matchup. I know everybody loves to say Dallas week and all this stuff, and I get it. But right now, I think at least this year, it's Washington, and one of those games might be meaningless.
And not only that, you're playing them twice in 3 weeks. You might be playing them 3 times in 5 weeks.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Which is too much. I just don't want to see the same opponent that much.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's certainly a lot. So we're all on the same page here, though, that the Commanders are the number one threat.
I think
right?
so. Yeah,
I agree.
They're not the number one threat in the division. They might be the number one threat in the conference if they take a big step forward, more so than Detroit or more so than the Rams.
Yeah.
Or Minnesota may be in that, I don't know, but they may be a team if the quarterback has a leap in development, and we know how good he was last year, then that's a team that you could be playing for home field advantage too. So in that scenario, having the 2 games in the final couple of weeks, that may save the day.
Yeah. But you're right, Mark. It doesn't relent. I'm, just looking at it again.
Yeah.
You got it at the beginning of the season with Dallas, KC. The Rams are very tough. They were tough for the Eagles last year in the playoffs. At Tampa is always a really tough game. The Eagles do not really have a great recent history against the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. We'll get into that. Then you start, the Minnesota Giant thing, and then you out of the bye, Green Bay, Detroit, at Dallas, and then at the end of the year, you get Washington, Buffalo on the road, and then Washington. I mean, it's coming at you in every segment of the season.
Yeah, I'll tell you this: the road game for Eagle fans to travel is not Buffalo in week. What is that? Week 17.
Oh, there could be 17 inches of snow on the ground.
You may not get out of Buffalo.
We'll get a lake effect snow, and the fans will be in there the day before with their shovels.
Yep. Yeah, that is not your destination game this year, I will tell you that.
Hey, whoa, you get minimum wage and tickets, right? That's what they pay?
Oh, is that what they do?
I think they do minimum wage and tickets, if I'm not mistaken.
Nice.
You might get a little minimum salary out of it.
I'll go out there to the Chargers game on December 8th.
There you go.
Date which will live in infamy in the same day as the bell at the ball.
Isn't that the John Lennon assassination date too?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at the knowledge on you.
You get a lot
guys.
on this show, man.
You get it all, man.
Yeah.
Last time we had Corvette Summer. This time we got DeBella DeBall and assassinations. You know what
By
I
the
mean?
way, have you watched the movie
Dakota,
yet?
Harry.
Yeah, the Dakota.
not.
You have not watched the movie? Okay.
I have not. I really wanted to watch, and it was rainy in Philly, as we all know. It was terrible. It was a good movie days.
Yeah.
Just I couldn't find it on the streaming platforms, fellas. I looked, could not find it, unfortunately.
I don't think it's in streaming format.
no, it's digitized.
No, I don't think
Summer.
so.
You gotta watch that on actual film.
Right.
I think I might have to actually find a Blockbuster video.
Yeah, wire up the projector.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So looking at all this, I agree everything when it comes to the Washington Commanders and all that, but there's a couple of takes that I want to get into in a second here with you guys that I find fascinating. Harry, you have one from a writer that I too have never heard of on Yahoo. Yeah. I have one that is a prominent national voice, fellas, that I feel summed it up. Now, when we talked about the schedule the other day in anticipation and all that, I had talked about the schedule as if it was I'd never been more, I guess, intimidated is the right word than I have been looking at this 2025 Eagles schedule. But I think Rich Eisen came up with the perfect word for the Eagles schedule in 2025, because it does go hand in hand with something that we always talk about going into a new season when the schedule comes out with whoever the defending Super Bowl champions is. And it is, can they do it again? Can they repeat? We've talked about it with the Chiefs. We've talked about it with the Patriots plenty of times. We've talked about it with the Eagles in 2017, 2018. Can they do it again? Rich Eisen has a very interesting word, an adjective to describe this Eagles schedule. I think it's the most perfect word. We're going to get to that in a second. And also, the Eagles lose another member of their front office, second in as many weeks. We'll get into that as the show goes on today. This is Locked On Eagles Squad podcast on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. We'll be back after this. Let me tell you about the Gametime app, ladies and gentlemen. You have the Gametime app. You love the Gametime app. Well, you need to download the Gametime app and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. I mean, let's face it, there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena with the Gametime app, and you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off or face-off or kickoff or first pitch gets closer and closer. And with last-minute ticket deals, you can save up to 60%. Use the Gametime app because, you talk about priority and last-minute deals, save up to 60% on buying that last-minute ticket. All-in pricing means there's no surprises upon checkout. You know exactly what you're paying before you check out, and you take the guesswork overall out of buying tickets with the Gametime app. So you download the Gametime app, you create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase on the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute ticket, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome in once again to Locked On Eagle Squad podcast. That's Jason Bertidis and Harry Mays. My name is Mark Farzetta, and it's wonderful to have you guys along for this ride. I don't know where you guys are on the Rich Eisen the bandwagon, on or off. I've loved him since SportsCenter. You're on the guy?
I liked him on SportsCenter. I haven't liked him since he became the NFL Network guy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I loved him on SportsCenter.
I always enjoy. I think, as opposed to yelling the take at you or trying to sell you on a take, I think he has a very matter-of-fact way of delivering his opinion.
Yeah, he does.
And I like that. I'll use this again. In this day and age, I find that valuable. Jason, you a Rich Eisen guy?
Yeah, I find it valuable, too, because there's so many hot take guys that are disingenuous that don't even believe what they're saying. So I don't think he's a guy that goes out on this limb to shock you like Nick Wright or Chase Daniel. Some of these clowns that just they just make up this opinion that just to be a contrarian because they need attention or they need clicks or something. So he doesn't do that. And his takes or thoughts or opinions are usually pretty well thought out in solid foundational principles. So
he doesn't need clicks. He works for the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, how many more clicks do you need?
Yeah.
And it's going to be ESPN again.
Yeah.
Looks like
really?
They're going to acquire. ESPN supposedly set to acquire the NFL Network.
Oh, great.
And Rich Eisen back on the mothership as another former ESPNer.
Must they own everything? I hate ESPN with a
we just have some separation of church and state here. Why do they have to combine together? Because we know what ESPN does when they get a piece of something.
They ruin it.
Just
like the TNT NBA thing. They're going to ruin it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
TNT to me's remained pure.
Yeah.
When TNT had the NBA by itself, it was fantastic.
Right. And I like what they do with the hockey too, TNT.
They said they wanted to do that with the hockey. I didn't know if they could, but they have.
They have. Yeah.
They're irreverent and they're edgy and
they're fun.
It's way more fun. It's not so.
They just lost a major voice.
They did. Yeah, Rick Pocket will no longer be able to be on there.
Yeah,
he was good on there.
He was very good. I'll be sitting with him a little later this morning, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
I know. Yeah. I'm excited. I will say, this is the Eagles podcast, but let's go Flyers, baby. I love this hire.
TikTok.
How many coaches in the last 20 years?
Well, they've had 25 in the history of the team in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't had a coach they've only had one coach that's coached more than 5 years, and that was Fred Shiro.
Wow.
But that's hockey.
Yeah.
The average tenure of a coach right now is 1.98 years.
Dude, jeez.
Wow.
Don't
buy a house.
Get a 5-year deal and don't work 3 of it.
Right.
I hope you're renting.
Yeah, exactly.
Team hotel?
Yeah.
All right. So as far as Rich Eisen goes, I really feel like he cornered the market on the perfect way to describe this Eagles team. And if this isn't number one, then I certainly want to talk about what number 2 and number 3 could be. The number one threat, fellas, to use Rich Eisen's word, to the Eagles repeating as Super Bowl champions is the schedule, in his opinion. He laid it out, basically saying in 2017, after they won the Super Bowl in 2017, 2018, the biggest threat was you had so many backups. Was Carson Wentz going to come back and rally everybody and play great and take over? He ended up getting hurt. And then the ball went through Alshon Jeffrey's hands in the postseason in New Orleans. And there's no doubt in my mind that the Eagles scored a touchdown on that drive. And then they're playing the NFC Championship game. There's no doubt in my mind that's how it goes down. Then you go to 2022. They lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. They lose both coordinators. The biggest threat to the Eagles possibly repeating as at least NFC champions, not NFC East, but NFC East champions, was losing both coordinators following that Super Bowl loss.
Right.
Biggest threat.
Yes.
Here, looking at it, whether or not they can get back to the Super Bowl, whether or not they can win the Super Bowl, whether or not they can have a very similar year that they had last year, in Rich Eisen's opinion, and I agree with this, the biggest threat is the way the schedule is laid out. Now, first off, Jason, do you believe that? And second, if it's not the biggest threat, and I want to throw health out the door because every team can say that, is the biggest threat to the Eagles season schedule? And if it's not, what is?
Well, I mean, I don't think the schedule is particularly daunting because we knew the opponents. We've known that for a couple of years. We just didn't know the order in which they would get those opponents, if they would be put in disadvantageous positions, where you're on 5 days rest and the opponent's on 8. You see that happen sometimes. And to me, again, that's a scheduling thing that they got to figure out so you don't have these weighted opponents that, somebody laying in wait while you're on third week of traveling and on a short week and they're on a long week. So to have there's none of those in the schedule. So I look at the schedule and go, yeah, I think the schedule's always a big factor because of who you play. And we talk about it all the time, in pro sports and in the NFL, a lot of times it's not who you play, it's when you play them. But we don't know the result of that equation just yet because we don't know about injuries. We don't know that, hey, Jalen Hurts is out for this period of time. He's coming back this week, and it's when they get Team X. So we don't know all those different scenarios that are going to pop up during the season. There's going to be teams on the schedule that we're not worried about right now that we're going to end up being worried about when they play them. And there's going to be teams that we are worried about right now that we're not going to be as worried about when they play them as well. That's the thing with an NFL. There's always a couple of teams that jump up, and there's always a couple of teams you think are going to be good, and they fall off for whatever reason, injuries or just not playing well. You just don't know. So the schedule's always part of it, and it'll be a part of it this year. But ultimately, this team just needs to take care of their business, and I think they'll be absolutely fine as long as they stay healthy on both the lines. I think they're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's
threat, Harry.
It's not just who you play; it's when you play them in the NFL. And we're looking at this at May 16th. Okay, so we'll take it for what it is. But when I look at it, I agree with Rich Eisen, and it's because just looking at who they're playing, they're in the AFC West. You get Kansas City. You get the Chargers, who are an up-and-coming team with a good quarterback and a good coach. I think they're headed in the right direction. You get Denver, who's got a good coach and a young quarterback that appears to be on the uptick too. So there's 3 out of those 4 divisional teams. The Raiders are, who knows what the Raiders are come December when they play them. But you get the AFC West, and then you get the NFC North, which I think is a really good division. When you start thinking about the Chicago Bears as the worst team going into the season, in that they made a lot of upgrades, I feel, at least on paper, in the draft and in their off season. They got a quarterback who was drafted number 1, did not have the greatest year. He got totally outshined by Daniels in Washington, but he's got talent. And, they protect him. They got him some more weapons. They're going to be a better football team. And you add that to Detroit, Green Bay on the road, Minnesota on the road. I think that's a tough spot. And then you look at your division. You get Washington twice in the last 3 weeks. Dallas is Dallas. And, you get the Giants in two times in 3 weeks. And you got to figure they'll be a better team, the Giants. I don't know how good they are, but you got, when will Jackson Dart be under center? Will he be under center by any of those games against the Eagles? Will he start the year? So those are those things. It's not just who you play, it's when you play them. Will they make a quarterback change at some point early in the year? Or, will Dart be in the lineup after the Eagles are already done with the Giants? We don't know. But the NFC North and the AFC West, tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll say this. I do think it is the biggest threat to them repeating. And then the other takeaway I take from it is I look at it like this. What do we talk about every year? Oh, the NFL and parodying the NFL, and these teams are so close. Well, this is one of the reasons it is tough to three-peat.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons it's tough to repeat, is that when you do get to the mountaintop, it's not like, all right, well, we'll just give you the easiest schedule next year because you earned it. No, they want to see you knocked off.
Right.
They want another fan base to be rewarded with a Super Bowl parade and a championship and all that stuff. They don't want you to repeat. Yeah, sure, every once in a while you get a great story and you think, a guy like Patrick Mahomes can be the face of the NFL, and he is, But then maybe you look at another team that could rise above, like the Kansas City Chiefs have done more often than not, and gotten back to that promised land. You look at a team that can certainly do that this year, and there's no doubt in my mind. And the number one reason is I look at what Saquon Barkley can do behind the offensive line, and I say, oh, yeah, this team, they are poised to control the NFC. They're poised to get back despite the schedule. But when you shift away from it and say, okay, let's go with option B here. If it's not the number one threat to the Eagles repeating at least similar success to what they had last year and at least maybe winning the NFC, what is the biggest threat to the Eagles not having the same success as they had last year? You think it's themselves?
I do. Yeah.
I agree, because I think they're the best team in the NFL.
I agree again. They're the best team in really important spots too. When you as a macro, the team is the best team collective, right? When you look at the micro, the most key areas of the game, they're really good too. When you look at the offensive line, the defensive line, you look at their coaching at the coordinator positions to put those units in the best position possible. And then you have, the guys, you have a Super Bowl MVP in Jalen Hurts. You have Saquon, who's coming off a legendary season. A.J. Brown he's still young in some areas. Your secondary is young and hungry. So it's got to be themselves. There's 5 games in particular that I look at and go, to get to the Super Bowl again, do you need the home field throughout, which has been a luxury at times for them. But there's 5 games, and the 5 road games is Kansas City this year, Tampa, because it's a tough place to play where they traditionally get tough matchups, the Minnesota game, Green Bay, and then at Buffalo. That's 5 really tough road games, and that could determine home field. So, especially the ones against Green Bay or Minnesota, games in your conference with tiebreakers, those games are paramount importance. So, and 4 of them are in the first half of the year. So it's pretty wild. We'll know a lot when we get to Thanksgiving where this team is and what the likelihood of them not leaving Philly for when the playoffs start unless they end up in a Super Bowl game.
I think the biggest thing that could hold them back is Saquon Barkley and just his ability to back up the season that he had last year. I mean, when you give a running back that many touches, typically in the NFL, and maybe he's an outlier, typically the next year or there's some sort of fall off. I mean, we've seen this. DeMarco Murray had that big year before the Eagles brought him in here, right? He had 392 touches, I believe, the year before with Dallas. He had a very lackluster season, and some of that was due maybe to the way Chip Kelly was utilizing him. I'll give you that, because we talked about that at length on the radio every day. But he did have a big fall off. Terrell Davis played 17 games over 3 seasons after his big year in 1998, where he had 392 touches. I think what was Saquon's 345 touches, maybe
including the playoffs, 482.
482 in the playoffs. Okay,
game now too.
That's a great number. So that to me is the biggest thing. Are they going to be able to manage Saquon over the first maybe 5, till the bye week? Let's go the first 8 games. I think a management of Saquon's usage is paramount, and I don't know at this point on May 16th whether they have it. It depends on what this Thunder Thighs or whatever the heck his nickname is. Has A.J. Dillon. It depends on what A.J. Dillon we're going to get, losing a whole year to an injury. We'll see. If he's really good, then we could be in good shape. But that, to me, is the way I sort of look at it. It's all about Saquon.
Yeah, okay. I don't know his year is repeatable. I mean, he's not young. He's 28. Yeah, right. So it's not – you look at some of those – like Terrell Davis probably did it around the same age. In 1998 when he had all those yards, and DeMarco probably maybe even a little older, DeMarco Murray. So coming back, it is tough. I'm not looking for him to repeat what he did last year because I don't think he can. I think it was just magic last year, for him. And I think you do manage him. If you have a good backup, you manage his season a little tighter. He had the record-breaking one last year. I don't think you strive for that this year. I think you strive to have him fresh when it matters.
You love that Thunder Thighs reference, didn't you, Mark?
I was looking for her in high school, Harry.
I was.
Hey, Thunder
AJ
Thighs.
Dillon no longer
Save lives.
Quadzilla.
Yes.
Yeah, Quadzilla.
AJ Dillon no longer Quadzilla. Thunder Thighs.
Yes.
Not Thunder Lips from Rocky.
Thunder Lips, that was Hulk Hogan's
Yeah,
character,
Hulk
right?
Hogan. Yeah,
Dude.
it was Hulk Hogan.
How about that?
Let me just say, I found out the hard way that saying a girl has thunder thighs is not a compliment.
No.
I mean it as one.
I know,
Yeah.
but I found out the hard way. Women don't like to hear
No.
that. Thunder thighs. I thought that was a good thing, like good strong leg. No, apparently not. Apparently that's that. You don't say that. For all the kids listening, not a compliment.
Yeah.
In football, though, Harry, compliment. You can call it a compliment.
Absolutely.
This is interesting. So the Saquon stuff is certainly a concern of mine, and I think Harry, you and I are outliers here in that people are like, "Oh, they're not Derrick Henry carries. He's fine. Whatever." I don't give a damn. That's a lot of carries. That's a lot of touches for anybody. So don't give me Derrick Henry. Then the other thing I want to mention in all this is my ask of the Eagles, and especially Kevin Patullo as the play caller now. I don't need Jalen Hurts to lead the league in passing yards. I don't need that. But can we get, instead of bottom of the barrel in terms of pass attempts, can we get middle of the road? And that doesn't mean shoehorn the passing game in and all that stuff. But all that means to me is, hey, Saquon, do a little bit less. Do a little bit less so that we can further guarantee that we can have you as fresh as possible in the postseason. So I won't chalk it up for me as my number one concern, but it's my number one change that I would ask of the Eagles going into Kevin Patullo's tenure of the offensive coordinator and play caller job and all that. But if I had to nail down a concern, and it has nothing to do with the schedule, it's not Saquon Barkley, it's not his usage, but my number one concern is the unknown of this rookie class and some of the new additions, because to me, you're asking a lot. Like, this is a top-tier defense that lost Milton Williams, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, your leading edge rusher in Josh Sweat. You lost your starting corner opposite Quenyon Mitchell. Like, you have lost a lot. Or even Orrin Burks, the guy that stepped up at the end of the year when Nakobe Dean was hurt. Like, you've lost some big pieces to this defense. So if Drew Makuba is going to be your starting safety, which is not still going to be Justin Simmons, but if he is, if Drew Makuba is your starting safety opposite Reed Blankenship, is he ready for that? Is Jihad Campbell ready to take over for not only what Josh Sweat did or what Nakobe Dean did, depending on how they use him? Is he ready to take over for a guy like Hassan Reddick and his production from 2 years ago? Is Ty Robinson, who just signed his rookie deal, is he able to take over the responsibility of a Milton Williams, or find a way between what Milton Williams did and what Moro Ojomo did last year and have Moro Ojomo step up in that Milton Williams role? Like, the question marks for me on this team, the concern on this team is overall new people with bigger responsibilities on defense. We found out last year that Bryce Huff was nowhere near ready for the promotion that he got from the Jets to the Eagles. Nowhere near ready for that kind of promotion.
Nope.
Are the guys on this squad now, whether rookies, whether they're free agent acquisitions, are they ready to take a step up? Is Sidney Brown going to be your starting safety? Is Adoree Jackson? I mean, he might be your most proven commodity in terms of guy that's been a starter in his NFL career and now going to be starting for the Eagles. Now, I say all that as, yes, obvious questions going into the season, and absolutely my number one concern is whether or not the rookies can step up and be the players that the Eagles need them to be. I say all that while still having a hell of a lot of confidence in Howie Roseman and Vic Fangio for putting a stamp of approval on all these players picked. But, gentlemen, we still haven't seen it.
Yeah,
we still haven't seen it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For all the attrition that they had, are the players that are coming in going to be equal to, greater, or lesser? And if they are lesser, can Vic Fangio scheme that so that they're not a detriment if they're lesser? And some of these guys, young guys, especially at the beginning of the year where the schedule is really unrelenting, are adjusting to the NFL game and adjusting to the Eagles system. And we know they don't really do a whole heck of a lot in the preseason.
Right.
That's going to, prepare them, to be clicking on all cylinders right out of the gate. So
how about those preseason games?
Yeah,
too,
I mean, what a waste.
Cincinnati,
right?
Cleveland, and the Jets.
Hey, you know what, gentlemen? I don't knock it. It's your only back-to-back home for the year.
Oh, yes, there you go. I got another one too. And I want to toss this around with you guys, see what you think. How about they get more production and sort of force more production into their third and fourth wide receiver guys? I mean, we saw where this team, when they get 1 and 2 on the field, okay, they're great. You know, the 1 and 2 with the tight end healthy and Saquon, beautiful. But they went a couple of games without some of those wide receivers last year. You saw how the offense totally changed.
Yeah.
And some of it was not so good because the guys, you know, like Dotson was nothing. I know he made a couple of catches in the playoff games and so forth, but I think they really need to sort of force that third wide receiver into some more production and see what they have.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing where you can see if you can get. I mean, Dotson had 19 catches last year.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he was a first-round pick a few years ago by Washington out of Penn State.
Like during the season, let's spread the ball. Like get 2-3 targets a game to those guys.
Yeah,
take that off of Saquon and use those guys for those targets and feed AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. But yeah, get those guys involved a little bit more.
Yeah,
because you're just saving plays that way by doing it, and you're not have the wear and tear on the top players that you need. You need to manage this season so that when you come to December and trying to lock home field down and into the playoffs, that those guys are more fresh.
I think there's just been an over-reliance sort of on the first two guys. I think even if the things don't turn out great, at least to give a defensive coordinator later in the season to the idea that, hey, we got to cover this guy. They will throw to him.
Something to think about.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I love the idea, and I think that worked great. I think, and that's part of the reason I want Kevin Patullo to get the passing game at least to the middle of the road. That's all.
I think that's a way you can do that.
I agree. I think that's a great point. When you look at last year and how run heavy they were, it was like, all right, when we do pass it, make sure Smitty gets his, make sure AJ Brown gets his. And that's not to criticize either for being dramatic or anything. No, that means get the ball in the hands of, if it's not going to be in the playmaking ability of Saquon Barkley, it's going to be in the hands of the playmaker that is Devontae Smith or AJ Brown. Absolutely get Jahad Dotson involved. Absolutely get Johnny Wilson involved. Love to see all that. The one thing that wouldn't surprise me, though, is because you have Dallas Goedert essentially playing the last year of his contract, albeit at a discount. I wouldn't be surprised if they almost pull a bell cow running back approach with their tight end. And we saw this again, to go back to the DeMarco Murray comparison. The Cowboys knew DeMarco Murray wasn't coming back that year, so they were just like, yeah, here you go. Right? You ain't going to be helping us next year. See ya.
Right. Your tongue's going to be on the ground regardless of where you play, but it ain't going to be here.
Yep.
I would not be surprised if the Eagles took a similar approach and just said, hey, Dallas, look, this helps us in that we need to get our passing game going and more regulated. This helps us certainly by giving you the football. It's also going to help your numbers for that free agency contract that you're going to sign next year.
Right.
So
if you can
I
stay
would
healthy.
be shocked.
Yeah.
If he's healthy.
And
here's
another one.
It wouldn't surprise me if they went about it like that.
Here's another one, too. There's no more Kenny Gainwell on the roster, and that was always a guy that would catch a couple of passes. He averaged, 25 receptions per year over the course of his 4-year career with the Eagles.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. It's a lot more than I would have.
It really is, isn't it? 102 catches in 4 seasons.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good.
I almost don't even remember that
being
an element. But it's easy to overlook that when you see what like Saquon did last year.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And the great plays AJ Brown makes or Devontae Smith. Those things get overlooked, but they matter.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Thunder Thighs has to come off the bench, and he's got to make sure that he gets those receptions because it's a key part of the backup running back role, fellas. You know what I mean?
You got to play AC/DC's Thunderstruck when he comes.
Yes.
Thunder.
I think there's an old Bon Scott lyric that has to revolve around some woman's thighs.
Always.
Well, no, the first one without Bon Scott, off Back in Black, there's some reference to thighs.
That was American.
American thighs. That's it.
There you go.
That's what I'm thinking of. There you go.
Those thighs are American.
Damn right.
Legendary song too.
Quick blink of a break, and then Harry, I know you got another.
Oh yeah.
I hate to even call him a national voice because I never heard of him, but it's on the internet, so I guess it's global. Anyway, all right, we'll break down another person's take of the Philadelphia Eagles schedule after this. Like I said, it was quick. All right, Harry, who is this guy? Jason, have you told Jason about this? Because I
have
didn't
not.
see this.
I have not.
Okay.
I got about
All right,
2
lay it
minutes,
out
and I
for me.
got to run down.
Oh, Jesus.
Jeez.
You can be late for that. Nobody
Back
cares.
to the Flyers.
All right. I saw this, I think it was yesterday, and I put it out on X. Yahoo Sports, 3 teams that were absolutely screwed by the NFL schedule and 3 who weren't. And this guy, James Dator, Dator, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, went through a couple of teams, and he said the Giants got screwed. And I've saw that before. The Giants have maybe the toughest schedule, and a big reason for that is they faced the Eagles twice and the Commanders twice in the division. And then they've got Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers, Saints, Eagles, all in the first 6 weeks. Then it was Minnesota, not screwed. And then we get to screwed was Detroit. And here we go, not screwed, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we just went through the schedule, and we think it's really tough, right? There's no let-up, according to Mark, and I totally agree with that. Jason, I think you agree. Yeah. This guy says that not really sure how the Super Bowl champs pulled this one off, but Philadelphia is one of the few teams not to have multiple divisional games to kick off the season. They faced Dallas in the opener. They don't need to worry about the NFC East until week 6. Then he goes and says, this will allow the Eagles to get into the groove of the season without too much to worry about when it comes to shock games. Outside of that, Philadelphia doesn't need to worry about a ton of long travel. They get their toughest opponents at home. And that sets them up perfectly to make another run. And I went through it, and I said in my tweet, I'm like, bro, you need to re-examine your power rankings because they're facing, by the way, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Green Bay, the Chargers, and the Bills on the road. Have you looked at that?
Yeah, and 3 of those in the first 10 weeks.
Correct.
9 games,
yeah.
mind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, I think they put out these takes like this just to garner, because they know the Philadelphia fan is sensitive. We're still sensitive,
and they're seeking Eagles content every day. So they're going to go, let's look at this Yahoo article.
We're a fun
this
fan
guy
base.
thinks we have an easy schedule.
Yeah.
We're a fun fan base.
We'll react. They know we'll react.
Yeah.
We're not just passively going to sit around and go, oh, okay, you're right. The Eagle fan's going to go, dude, here's the facts, and get in your face about it. You know?
And more importantly, click.
Yeah,
we're gonna click.
Right.
They know they got us. Hey, I know you got to get to the new head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, his press conference and everything, Jason. So you go ahead and you take off, my friend. Thank you so much.
Boys, it's been real.
Ya.
Short but real.
Good luck to the organization. Good, yeah, right. Tell Tockett I still take his advice on how to shave your head. That's how bald men communicate. Harry, I do believe this, and just to wrap up that point, I do believe that the Philadelphia fan base is one of the most consistent stories for national media.
Yeah.
Negative or positive. Mostly negative, unfortunately. But they know that if they poke us, we will react.
Of course.
We're not just going to be like, we're not just going to be like, that's an interesting point you make. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we're going to tell our friends about it. We're going to argue about it. We're going to obviously give it attention, and attention is the great currency in today's day and age, not accuracy.
Right.
But I really don't understand how you could take away from this schedule that this is favorable to the Eagles. Is there a positive or maybe 2? There's definitely one positive. The bye week is in the middle of the season. That's a great thing.
Yep.
And last year I looked at the bye week as a positive because you were going to have a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. If things weren't going well, you had time to correct it. You had a new defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio, not the cover band of the Vic Fangio hits, of the Jonathan Gannon or Sean Desai era. You were going to have the real deal.
Right.
You're going to have the original act. And if any problems arose, you had a bye week to correct it. The Eagles corrected a lot of mistakes last year. I know everyone wants to point to Saquon Barkley as they finally started feeding him. Well, he still ran the ball well in the first 4 games. But then you also look at the defense. Cooper DeJean became your starting slot corner. Phenomenal. And then also you missed far fewer tackles after week 4. Things settled in nicely defensively as well after the bye week last year. Now you have it right there in the middle of the season. So injuries, it falls right in the middle of there. If you have an early injury in the season, you also have a nice midway point. You essentially have a halftime for the entire season, which is great.
Yeah.
But everything else, look, Dallas, were they a playoff team? No, obviously not. But with Dak Prescott as a starting quarterback, they're a playoff team. They choke in the playoffs, but they're still a playoff team. Kansas City, literally, what are we even talking about here?
Yeah.
You have them right as your first road game. Yep. Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds easy.
Little revenge.
Yeah. Little revenge. The Chargers come here, or excuse me, the Rams come here to Philadelphia. The team that played you the best in the playoffs, they come here to Philadelphia. And then, as we talked about already, you always struggle against Tampa in Tampa, and you're playing Tampa in Tampa.
Yeah.
Denver at home, whatever. Giants on the road. Then you go to Minnesota, see what they have with McCarthy as their starting quarterback. Shifting gears from last year. Like, this, to me, is not an easy open to the schedule. No. Yes, you have the bye week in the middle, but then you go right to Green Bay on a little bit of extended rest there because it's the Monday night game. But that's another playoff team. The Detroit Lions, to me, I think there are two legitimate threats to the Eagles repeating when you talk about outside influences. We talked about already the schedule. We talked about already the Eagles being the biggest threat to themselves. The Lions, everything caught up with them in the playoffs, in the divisional round against the Commanders. They had an opportunity to maybe be the deepest team since the 2010 Packers that had, I think, 18 guys on IR, the 2017-2018 Eagles that won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles and all those backups. If they would have made it to the Super Bowl or won the Super Bowl, you're talking about one of the deepest rosters in the history of the NFL that had a ton of guys on IR by the time that playoff game happened, let alone middle of the season guys going on IR, including Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah. So
you look at all these guys that were injured for them last year. They are still a phenomenally talented, well-coached, for the most part, football team. They lose the offensive coordinator and Ben Johnson go into the Bears, but that is still a phenomenally talented football team, and they're coming here to Philly. That ain't going to be an easy game. I'm glad the Eagles at least have that game at home, but that game ain't going to be easy either. And look, do we know the opponents? Yes, we knew the opponents. But we didn't know that it was going to be a Monday night game against Green Bay, then coming back home on short rest after a primetime game to take on the Lions that Sunday afternoon. Or excuse me, for another primetime game that Sunday night. So there is, again, I'll go back to it, unrelenting, the schedule. Oh, and then after that, you got the Dallas Cowboys again. So, again, you're standing at attention this entire year.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said. And, just to add a few things to that Rams game being in September, there's not going to be a bad weather situation, cold weather kind of thing to, play to your advantage like it was in January. So, that's a team that, excels out there in nice weather. And, the week 6 is a short week at the Giants because it's Thursday night football. Week 7 at Minnesota. Minnesota's off their bye. We get the bye week 9. Then week 10, you get an extra day for instance, going Monday night at Green Bay. But then week 11, you host Detroit off that short week. Week 13, you host the Bears off a short week because it's a Friday game, a standalone Friday game after Thanksgiving. I think it starts at maybe 3 in the afternoon. That's a new wrinkle. Week 14 at the Chargers on Monday Night Football. Now you get an extra 3 days coming back from a Friday to a Monday. So there you get a little bit of a payback. But then week 16, you get Washington on a short week playing on a Saturday. So there's an ebb and flow to advantages and disadvantages to just when the days fall. I mean, they play on Thursday night, Friday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, maybe Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, and Monday night. They basically play every night of the week except Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's what you are. When you are the defending champ, you're a very, attention-grabbing team. You're going to make all those primetime games. I mean, what do they got? 2 Thursday nights, 2 Monday nights, a Sunday night as it stands right now without flexing. And then they get a Friday and a Saturday. And then you get the 4 games in the late window on Sundays. That's a lot of Eagles.
Before the bye week, what do they have? 4, 1, or 5 1 o'clock games before the bye week. Okay.
Correct.
After the bye week, they have 1.
Yeah. Las Vegas.
It's the Vegas game, and because who wants the Raiders?
And this just in, that won't be flexed.
Exactly. That won't be flexed. And then the TBD is the Saturday game against the Commanders.
Yep.
So I guess what? That game ain't going to be 1 o'clock either.
No.
Not for nothing.
No.
That ain't going to be 1 o'clock either.
No.
Hey, look, if I was an outsider looking at all this, like by outsider, I mean if I wasn't an Eagles supporter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at this. I would, meaning the show, not the schedule. I'd be like, oh, these guys are bitching about their how schedule hard. They're lining up the excuses and all that. To me, it's. I don't think it's an excuse. We're talking about an acknowledgement that this is a rough road ahead.
It is, and it should be. It should be a tough schedule. You're coming off a Super Bowl. I get all that, but we're just calling it what it is. I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, the Eagles are going to miss the playoffs because of this schedle," or this is unfair. Right. None of that stuff. I'm just acknowledging, like this. I mean, you have it up there on the screen. It's the 4th toughest schedule in the NFL. I don't know who that's according to, but
that's Fox Sports. Sorry.
Okay, so
you have a betting app.
The sports betting dime I saw on Crossing Broad had him as the 6th toughest schedule. I mean, it's easily one or the other. I mean, it's a top 5 tough schedule. We can all agree on that.
We'll split the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a wild one. Certainly the first schedule I've ever looked at, I guess, with as high expectations I've had for the Eagles, it's the first schedule I've looked at and gone, oh damn. Yeah. It's like no holds barred when it comes to this Eagles schedule for the upcoming season.
Here's one good thing, though. Here's another good thing. They're playing all the games in the United States. Okay, I saw all these stinking international games. There might be like 8 or 9 international games. They're going to Madrid. The Commanders have to go to Madrid to play the Dolphins. I think Kansas City is leaving the country again to play the Chargers, maybe down in South America. So one of their big divisional games is out of the country. You get they're going to Germany. I think there's 4 or 5 different countries represented. The Eagles are playing them all in the States, so that's a good thing.
All right, I was just looking up if the Eagles could play in Pamplona right after they run the Bulls.
Oh, the Bulls.
Yeah, but that's in July.
Okay,
that's in July. That's not during the season.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they run away from the Bulls into the arena, play a game, and then at halftime they fight the Bulls. That's the way it goes down.
That would be a double header.
Harry, would you ever run with the Bulls?
No. And I ran cross country and track in high school, so I was able to move at one point in my life. But no, I'm not doing that. We can talk about go ahead.
I feel like I'd be fast. I'm not fast, but I feel like I'd be fast.
All you got to be is you got to be faster than one guy.
Yeah,
because he's going to get it first. That's it.
I almost did this with a buddy of mine, and he's faster than me. We grew up together, so I know he's faster than me. That would have been a mistake. That would have been bad scouting by me, Harry.
Okay. Yeah.
That would have been bad scouting because I would have been the guy that got gored while he made it into the stadium.
It's a great name, gored, or a great word. The Thanksgiving Day and Christmas.
Great word, gored.
Gored. That's and if Mertitas was still here, he'd be saying that's a great Canadian first name, like Gord instead of Gordon. Right. That's a good hockey name. Yeah, that's what he'd be saying. Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day games, I got to hand it to the NFL. They've upgraded.
I like that slate as well.
They've upgraded. I mean, you got Kansas City at Dallas instead of the Giants in Dallas as that game that's always right around when people eat dinner, like around 4:25 on a Thanksgiving Day. Green Bay, Detroit is great. Cincinnati at Baltimore. This Baltimore playing in the Thursday Thanksgiving night game is kind of becoming a thing, I've noticed. And any divisional game there is good. So Cincinnati at Baltimore, that's a pretty good day. Then the Eagles play standalone the next day against the Bears. But Christmas Day, they're dominating Christmas Day now. They said the NBA stinks. We are going to take it over, and they have already. Dallas at Washington, Detroit at Minnesota, and then Denver at Kansas City. That's 3 good games.
That is bonkers. I will say this, as far as the Baltimore slate goes on, or the Thanksgiving slate with Baltimore, I can tell you that was a goal from a long time ago, from the first Sunday night production on that Thanksgiving night. That they wanted. Part of it, I think, has to do with the proximity to New York and Stamford. That you're East Coast and that you're not going far from your family, essentially. But I can remember doing the first game down there when I was on the crew, and there was the buzz going around of, this might stick, where this becomes, the third game on Thanksgiving. Might be Detroit, might be Chicago, or might be Detroit, Dallas, and Baltimore as the mainstays of Thanksgiving. So they that's come to fruition. That's come to fruition.
Yeah.
I loved it. My mom's from Baltimore. I got to, at least see my grandparents that day.
There you go. Yeah.
But selfishly. But yeah, that looks like it has stuck. And that is, I thought the same thing. Wait, I was like, wait, you're getting the Packers Lions rivalry, not Packers Bears. That's better. I love that. Then Kansas City playing at Dallas, I love, because I think Dallas is losing that game. And then Cincinnati and Baltimore is another great rivalry. So I think they hit a home run when it came to the slate on Thursday. I don't think you're going to have that game where you kind of forget, or like first quarter you're watching it, then you go up, you get your dinner, you're talking to the family, whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like late in the second quarter, like, whoa, how'd this become 21-0? Wait, what happened?
And it's funny you say that, because that happens. That always seems
exactly
when it's a donkey game, you're in and out of it, and next thing you know, you tune back in, and it's like a 3 touchdown difference in the third quarter. You're like, screw it. Not this year.
Literally, I got the question from my mother-in-law. Oh, how are the Wisconsins doing? I said, I'm sorry, what was that? The Wisconsins? There you go. All right, I'm going to hit a quick blink, and we're going to wrap things up in a second. Right back after this. That's a radio term here, right there.
What's that?
Blink. A blink.
Oh, yes.
Making that into the digital world.
Back in a blink.
Back in a blink. Yep. I want to get a couple of comments in here real quick. Sure. Jorge Santiago, great name. I think the Eagles have Tampa circled on the schedule. Vic will have them prepared this year. Oh, I certainly think so. Oh, and Ari was popping off. First off, Ari, he's a Eagles fan, but also a St. Louis Cardinals fan. We forgive him for that. Go Owls. Go Temple Owls. My dad was in love.
My hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Class of 1723 or something. I love that.
1723. Wow.
Predates the country, babe. They were partying on North Broad Street before the Declaration of Independence was signed. Missed the first part of the show, says Ari. Yes, tough schedule. Yes, lots of short weeks. Mark's always saying if Nick does anything well, it's preparing. That's true. I do say that. Thank you, Ari. That is one thing that, with the exception of that horrible collapse at the end of 2024 or 2023.
23.
Yeah, 23. He does a phenomenal job of getting this team ready to play. And hey, guess what? He has his work cut out for him again this year. Harry, real quick before we get out of here, what's the name? Do you have the name? I missed this. That the Eagles lost another front office member.
Yeah, they've actually lost 2 now over the past month to the same team, Mark. Earlier this month, the Las Vegas Raiders, hired their senior director of college scouting, Anthony Patch, to be their new senior personnel exec. But now the Raiders are hiring another Eagles front office guy, their senior director of scouting, Brandon Hunt. He'll be the VP of player personnel in Las Vegas. So 2 key scouting execs leaving Philadelphia for Las Vegas. And I guess that's, you talked about earlier about them losing coordinators, coming off Super Bowls. Everybody wants to be you now. So, what do the Eagles really do well? They've hit on their draft picks. They do a really good job of scouting college talent, and the Raiders want to get some of that. So I trust we have to trust at this point Howie going forward that he's going to be able to replenish. It's like a quarterback factory. They've also been talked about as being a sort of assistant GM kind of factory. A lot of guys being pulled out of their front office, going elsewhere and becoming personnel directors, GMs, and so forth. So the family tree, if you will, of the Eagles organization in the front office expands to Las Vegas.
The Raiders, I think you said it before the show started, they're raiding the Eagles front office. Those hoodlums. Can't stand them, those Raiders. I'll chalk this up as I did with Anthony Patch when we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. He was here 20-plus years. The organization rose through the ranks. The organization was sad to lose him and all that stuff. But if Howie's still here, if Nick is still here, if Jalen's still here, if Vic Fangio's still here, I feel pretty damn good about the Eagles' future. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's the show, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be tweeting this out a little bit later. I know we taped a little bit earlier than we normally do. Our schedules are crazy this week, but we wanted to make sure that we got the Eagles reaction show to their 2025 schedule. Harry, always a pleasure, brother.
Yeah, and Louis today, for people wondering, I think he's either running in a race or bike race or something for the Eagles Autism Foundation. So that's where he is. He had a really good excuse today.
Yes, he did. He's a charitable cause for the Philadelphia Eagles. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Louis got you covered each and every day for your Locked On Eagles daily podcast. Harry, me, Jason, and Louis will have you covered mostly here for the Locked On Eagles Squad podcast twice a week in the offseason. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Catch you guys next week. Go Birds.